We all love to photograph beautiful scenes, but when something doesn't fit within our concept of beauty, we tend to narrow our focus down to show only that which does. But I'm here to tell you, sometimes we need to stop pretending that everything is perfect. We're currently living in a world where everything seems to be upside down and back to front. Our weather patterns being out of sync, the ocean currents are changing. If there's one thing we can count on, it's in Australia, January to March is our big fire season. The eucalypt forests have dried out significantly, and one small spark, even in the damp, can set the entire forest off. The story goes is that someone set up a camp in an old sawmill site, and even though they put their fire out, the fire got down into the sawdust, which is about 3 metres deep. Give it a couple of days of germinating and the entire lot goes up. The people in the area are extremely lucky because this was the only fire going in Tasmania at the time. And so the full force of the Tasmanian Fire Service came down to contain this fire. Because there are so many communities around the area, the loss would have been huge. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't protect the forest anyway, but the priority of the Tas Fire Service is to protect people and their homes if possible. Now, this fire was contained and eventually put out, but there are currently 3 fires going on the western side of the state through World Heritage Area and the Tarkine Forest, which is effectively unprotected, but it's also home to the oldest trees in Australia, being a stand of Huon pines 3,000 years old. The Fire Service and Parks and Wildlife are doing everything they can to protect those trees because of their sheer significance on the world stage. I used to run mountain bike tours down here to get to a waterfall on the other side. And so for me personally, seeing this fire and what it's done is literally devastating. In fact, the only positive side to this I can see is that I can now see inside the forest and see the landscape itself. As I said, we shouldn't be shying away from the effects of these sort of events. It was my thought to come up and photograph what I could, because even in devastation, I believe there is some kind of beauty. And even when you can't find beauty, we still need to record the events so that in the future people can see just what kind of effect these fires can have. Looking at the aftermath, it's almost like I'm looking at an infrared photo. I mean, there's little spots of green, but it's all reds and yellows and blacks. Because the entire area is pretty much monochrome, I've got my camera set to black and white. And that really helps because I can see the difference in contrast and the lighter tones. And it means that when I get back to the studio, I can switch back to colour and pull those colours out as much as I can, but if the tones aren't working, then the photo in general won't work. And I've also got my Polariser on, and at first I didn't think it would do much, but one of the effects of the Polariser is that it does affect the white balance a little. These leaves up here, they're quite light, and I don't want to really bring them out too much. I want to show what the effect of the fire has had. They're not burned, but they've been dried out and scorched. And I really want to show the subtleties of those colours. Whereas the scene at large, I'd like to show more of the oranges against the blacks. So I turn the Polariser to enhance the warmth there. Or it drops down to being quite a subtle shade of green and blue. And then the main thing is make sure that you're at the right shutter speed. I've had to drop the aperture down to 5.6 and the ISO I've pushed up to 640. With the bigger scene, if I turn the polarizer around to a warmer colour, that will accentuate the oranges and browns against the black. Feels eerie. This forest here was inaccessible. Like the ground coverage was so dense. There's no way you're getting in there. And now you can go skipping through there. However, I would not encourage it. You don't know what effect the fire has had on the ground. Yeah, you just need to be really careful when walking through burnt forest. One thing you won't get on the other side of that screen is there's this rich smell of eucalyptus mixed with creosote. It's probably the most unusual combination I've ever had. A lot of the forests in Australia actually evolved to use fire to their advantage. Some plants won't even germinate unless the seeds have been superheated. And so fire is this necessary part of Australian life. I still don't really want to damage anything while I'm here. I'm really loving this bend in the tree here. It's just amazing seeing all these flashes of colour where the bark is, where the burnt bark has fallen off and exposes the browns of the wood beneath. Let's get out of here. Although these fires were put out about a week ago, there is still smoke coming from the ground. It's quite scary. I don't think anyone's in any danger at the moment, but I can see probably 4 or 5 spots just in this piece of forest. Now, all I can do is report it to the fire service when I get back within range. In the meantime, I will still keep going, see what we can find. Hey, good, how are you?
Assessing the damage?
Assessing the damage, just seeing kind of what's what. I used to come up here a lot, so yeah. Yep. I did see a few little pillars of smoke coming through on the side there.
Thank you, yeah. Just had to head out that one, and there's always going to be little puffers, but yeah, just got to keep vigilant.
So I'm okay to go through here?
It's actually closed.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Just due to the fire that's just been through. So yeah, best to sort of just way back out the other end. And
sure.
Yeah, it'll be...
No worries, I'll start walking out again.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Cheers.
See ya. As I've been advised, it's time to head out.